Hey, this is Arthur Robinson Jr. I am the creator of PowerfulInterviews.com. I am the creator of AudioSecretsTrainingEvent.com. I want to welcome each and every one of you to this phenomenal video. In this interview, you're going to experience life-changing information that you will not find anywhere else. I have secured an incredible interview with a great friend of mine, international speaker, successful businessman, the Hecto Millionaire Bernt Ullmann. Bernt Ullmann is a successful businessman, and he built phenomenal brands like Fubu. You know the phenomenal brand Daymond has built to a $6 billion company. And Daymond is one of the successful businessmen on the hit TV show Shark Tank. In this interview, Bernt Ullmann, he breaks down layman's terms about he used to work for Donna Karan International, and he took that brand to a multi-million-dollar company. Bernt Ullmann, he also breaks down layman's terms about every successful entrepreneur or business professional needs to build their own brand identity. Bernt Ullmann, he also breaks down layman's terms about how he was hired at the Daymond brand, which Daymond personally hired him for Fubu, and he took Fubu from $100 million in sales to over $400 million in sales in just 2 years. Bernt Ullmann, he also breaks down layman's terms about when you build a phenomenal brand, you have to drive people's emotions and much, much more. So remember, this is not BS information. The right information will change your situation. Wealthy people, they take advice from other wealthy people, and unfortunately, broke people take advice from broke people. So right about now, go get your pen and your pad, sit back and relax, and write down some notes. In this interview that I'm going to reveal to each and every one of you with my great friend, successful businessman, the multi-millionaire, Bernt Ullmann. This interview, it will change your life. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you'll be well informed when I publish more underground interviews from these business icons. So, check it out.
I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the powerful Bernt Ullmann to the show.
Thank you, Arthur. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Bernt, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the listeners worldwide about the power of star branding. I gladly appreciate it.
Absolutely my pleasure, and thank you so much again for allowing me to share a couple of thoughts with your audience and yourself.
To everyone that's listening on the show, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Bernt Ullmann is going to break down layman's terms about the power of branding. Is that correct, Bernt?
That is indeed correct.
Now, what I'd like to know, and can you explain to the listeners in layman's terms, who is the powerful Bernt Ullmann? How long you been in your powerful industry, and what is your expertise?
Okay, well, let's see. That could have taken your whole show here, so I guess we're going to try to make it the shorter version. So, firstly, the accent you hear, it's not from Brooklyn or the Bronx, even though I'm sitting right here in New York. I'm, as a matter of fact, sitting right now in the Trump Tower, where my office is, or as they lovingly refer to it now, White House North. So that's where I'm sitting. But this accent that you're hearing, it's from Norway. So, and if you could see me, I'm supposed to be, tall and blonde with blue eyes when you're from Norway, but I'm anything but, so who knows what happened. So originally from Norway, went to a business school in Copenhagen, Denmark, where I got my BA, my MBA, and more interestingly, where I started Scandinavia's first home delivery of pizza pronto. So, and that's where I learned some of my first lessons. It's possible to be too early with a product, because back then in Denmark, food was something you prepared in the kitchen, and it was certainly not something you had delivered to the door. And the second lesson I learned is when you do go out and communicate with the market, you better be ready. So the very hard and fast story there is I used a little bit of charm, connections, and drive, and I got the story on the front page of the Sunday paper, including the number to Pizza Pronto. We had been open for approximately 10 minutes when the phone system broke down. At the time, I owned exactly 2 pizza trucks. Both trucks broke down. We delivered pizza 3, 4, 5 hours after people had called for them. Cold, soggy pizzas. And I have to tell you, it took quite a while to recuperate. But recuperate we did, and ultimately I moved to LA. This is the mid-'80s. I started another company, now in the fashion industry. We were Norwegian partners, so we formed Nor Partners, and had a terrific time selling some of the best stores in the country. From there, I moved to the West Coast. I worked at Donna Karan for 5 years. I was a corporate vice president at Donna Karan.
Wow.
And then left Donna Karan and went to a company called Fubu, For Us, By Us, founded by Daymond John, now a shark on the television show Shark Tank. And we had LL Cool J as a brand ambassador. And then I did that for 5 years. I was president of Fubu International. I then received a phone call from my former CEO at Donna Karan. He was at a different company, something called Kellwood, $3.5 billion corporation at the time. And he called and said they were looking at an acquisition, and could I consider joining them? So I did. The acquisition was of a company called Phat Fashions. Phat Fashions was founded by Russell Simmons, and it was for the brands Phat Farm and Baby Phat, which was operated by Kimora Lee Simmons, Russell's wife at the time. So I ran Phat Fashions for 5 years. And then in 2009, as you explained in your beautiful intro there of me, thank you very much, I founded Star Branding in partnership with Tommy and Andy Hilfiger and one other partner who founded that in 2009. And, you know, as the name says, Star Branding, we are simple guys. We're saying that stars can be brands. So that's really the premise that we set out with. And we have been lucky. So if you don't mind, I'll just elaborate real quick. You know, you mentioned one of the signature transactions, which was Jennifer Lopez and then husband Marc Anthony. But we did a number of others. We formed a partnership actually with Universal Music Group, the largest music company in the world. And we got access to their roster of stars, created a new brand for them. We placed that in 500 Macy's stores. We also did a transaction where we ended up creating Rolling Stone's 50-year anniversary collection. We created a collection for American Idol, a capsule collection that we placed in Kohl's. Very successful. And the list goes on and on. Then moving on from Mesh, and you had mentioned Mesh, and we formed Mesh in partnership with Lee and Fung, as you had said, and Mesh stands for Music, Entertainment, and Sport Holdings. And I was the founding CEO of Mesh. But outside of Mesh, I was contacted by Eddie Lampert, who is the chairman and CEO of Sears Holdings Corp.
Wow.
And Eddie Lampert wanted to hire me as the CEO of a new division, something called Shop Your Way's brand, or Shop Your Way brands. But at the time, I have to say, you know, I'm happy with my Star Branding partnership, so I didn't want to leave. But I thought it was an interesting task, so we ended up reworking that so it became a Star Branding contractual relationship instead. And I did become acting CEO for Shop Your Way Brands for Sears Holdings Corp. And we launched 2 new brands, Nicki Minaj and Adam Levine, in 500 fully fixtured shop-in-shops in Kmart.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's some of that history. And then, of course, as we have gone on, we said the focus was on stars becoming brands. but we have, of course, also had to expand the definition a little and say that brands can be stars, because we have, of course, also worked on brands that are not necessarily star-related. But that's a little bit of the background and where we came from and up until today.
Now, Sears owned Kmart, correct?
Yes, indeed, that's accurate.
Now, Bert, you were responsible for a lot of phenomenal big brands. So is your brand, is that your promise?
You know, I think your brand is always your promise. And I think it goes for actually all of these large, successful global lifestyle brands. They really have to deliver on the promise. What really happens when you build brands, you kind of go in, and if you take one of our celebrities as an example, what happens? What do we do? So we go in and we examine what are the best or most unique qualities of each individual, and we come up with what you could call their brand DNA. And then we capture that brand DNA, and we kind of take that brand DNA and we follow it through every single consumer touch point, which is extremely important. So once we have defined what it is, we come up with the name, we come up with the logo, we come up with the hang tag, the neck label, the packaging, the bag, the shop, the store, the shopping environment, the marketing campaign, the social media campaign, and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, you are always representing your brand, and every single consumer touch point has to be on the brand or on message. Now, going over to what you said, is your brand your promise? Yes. Strong brands create very powerful emotions, and emotions matters, because what happens is a customer, they may forget what you say. They may even forget what you do. They will never forget how you make them feel.
Wow. That is powerful. This is an incredible interview, and I appreciate you coming on my show today.
My pleasure.
Now, you said brands creates emotions.
Yeah.
So powerful brands are manufactured?
You know, some of them, manufactured is kind of, I think, maybe not the right word, because also one of the key points in all branding is for a brand to succeed, it has to be credible, it has to be authentic, and I believe it has to be aspirational. So it has to be credible, it has to be authentic. And I would say to its audience, it has to be aspirational. Different brands are aspirational to different people, obviously. But so what I'm saying by that is I do not believe you can manufacture an authentic brand. The consumer is too smart. They have too much knowledge today. So if you just sit out and say, I'm going to just make something and it's going to be great, most likely that's not going to happen. However, having said that, if you have a vision, if you have a story to tell, and that's incredibly important. Now, I think there are a number of steps you can take to kind of harness that, enhance that, make it, should we say, even more credible, make the message much clearer, and that's how you expand your brand. And ultimately what happens when you do that is you end up creating something that frequently is referred to as brand equity. And brand equity is, for lack of a better term, an intangible asset that gives the brand incremental value in the mind of the consumer. So you have the brand, you have what you're offering up, but somehow because of what you've done, because of the feeling you were creating, the brand in the mind of the consumer, it's worth more. And that's why, for instance, you could say, just as an example, if you look at take a T-shirt as an example, you can have a plain white T-shirt, a Hanes T-shirt, a 3-pack, and offhand, I'm not going to tell you exactly what that 3-pack is going to cost, but it's not going to cost a whole lot. That 3-pack, surely you can get it for less than $10. And then you have a brand like, let's take a Nautica or my partner, Tommy Hilfiger. And these plain T-shirts are going to cost much more than the Hanes T-shirts, but they're still going to be affordable to their audience. And then there is something like, if you take a brand like John Varvatos, who is more of a designer, and now you're talking about an $80 T-shirt. And to most people, an $80 T-shirt, that's a very expensive T-shirt. Now, why would someone be willing to pay $80 for something that you could buy in a 3-pack for $9.99? Well, it's because of the power of the brand. It's how that brand makes this person feel. And once you, as a brand, have established a brand equity, it gives you all kinds of opportunity. It generates more predictable revenue streams, and it obviously increases cash flow for the company through market share, and it allows you, as we just discussed, establish premium pricing where you have more extensive gross margins. And ultimately, the biggest value of all is it's an asset. Once you have this brand equity, when you have created something that in the mind of the consumer has a real value, you have an asset. You can sell that asset, you can license that asset, and create incremental revenue streams. And I can go on if you want. I don't know if how familiar the audience is with licensing, but let me just give you a quick example. Let's say, and we're going to just take an example real quick, let's say that this particular brand, we're going to make an example of someone that makes just great shoes. Okay, so we have this great shoe brand. For instance, I work closely with a company called the Fry Boot Company. Great company, great product. But once you have that and you have established this brand in the mind of the consumer as this beautiful, rugged, great, there's a brand DNA, there's a brand book that establishes what the brand looks like, what it feels like. Why couldn't you also, if you have a boot, why couldn't you have a bag? You could. Now, you say, well, I don't make bags, we make boots. Well, now you go to a best-in-class bag company and say, hey, we have this great brand, Fry, in this example. These are our great boots. They can be found in all these great stores. Would you like to create the bags? Most likely the bag company would love to do that, because to get the brand name that's valuable and already known at retail, that's at least half of the battle. So now you have the bags. So this bag company, they go ahead and the manufacturer and create the bags. They take the risk. They take the responsibility of designing the line and funding the inventory. Now, the licensor, the original company, the Fry shoe company or boot company, they still control the brand, so they approve or disapprove the look. But as long as the look is okay, the burden falls on the licensee, the bag company, to bring the product to market. And they pay rent, if you like, for the use of the brand name. So this rent is called a royalty. So they pay a royalty, which is a percent of sales. So as I said, brand equity is very powerful, and it allows you to really expand and build your business without kind of overextending yourself. Because once you have the bag, well, why can't you have a belt? Why can't you have a watch? Why can't you have sunglasses? Well, if the company has great boots, couldn't they have great jeans that goes with it? And on and on and on. And those brand extensions, those product extensions, when it's done right, become very, very powerful in creating a full brand universe. And many, many of the biggest brands that we know today in today's marketplace, that's how they get that big. So that's a bit about branding and then how to grow your business.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Now, you talked about powerful brands, and I know that Donald Trump has a powerful brand, and Sir Richard Branson, that owns Virgin, he has a powerful brand as well. But don't Donald Trump and Sir Richard Branson, they also do a lot of big licensing deals?
They do. Absolutely they do. And again, you know, I don't believe, honestly, that anyone can be best in class in every product, in any service, in every service, and in every product category. It's not logical. And I can tell you, I learned that lesson many, many years ago. So I mentioned earlier that I was a corporate vice president in Donna, Karan. I'll just give you an example. And back then in the day, the Donna Karan company was doing very, very well. And they had decided that, or we had decided, I was there, that we wanted to go into the men's fragrance business. Now, normally, there are a ton of fragrance, companies out there, and there are a ton of fragrances. Most of those are made by some of the larger specialist, fragrance houses, and they're made under license. But at the Donna Karan company originally, we thought, hey, we know better, so we're going to do it ourselves. And Donna wanted her men's fragrance to smell like her husband's neck. So we spent $30 million having people sitting around sniffing her husband's neck, trying to come up with bottles, trying to come up with a juice, and at the end of the day, $30 million later, there was still no fragrance at market, and that's when the Donna Karan company did their first licensing deal, because you can't be best at everything. So getting back to your question, yes, Donald Trump has a strong personal brand, and it stands for, it's aspirational, it's luxury, and all those things that go along with it. And he uses that in real estate. It's not logical that he would know how to make suits. So it's kind of funny, during this whole presidential debate, they were all talking about, but his tie is made in, China. Yeah, that's true, but, he had nothing to do with that. He has done a transaction with a company that is a best-in-class tie company, and if they think that the best value, the best quality for the consumer is coming, and I mean, China is an example, coming from China, that's where they're going to manufacture it, and they're paying a fee to Donald Trump for the right to apply his name to this tie. And that's exactly the same thing for Richard Branson and for a lot of other powerful, strong personal brands. So, I've had a lot of experience dealing with celebrities. And what's interesting there is a great deal of them have made their money, of course, then in whether it's music or acting, they have a personal brand, and kind of our job then is to help them harness what they stand for. Meaning, for instance, when we did Jennifer Lopez, should the line be all, tight and black lycra, or should it be, sophisticated, stylish? So you need to look at each situation individually. For Jennifer, at that time, she was a mom. She had twins, a little more mature, beautiful, sophisticated. So you go with a look that is consistent with her look. And that's kind of how you create these powerful brand extensions. One other thing I just like to add when you're looking at and working with the celebrities, we often use what we call the fame formula. And it's interesting because at the end of the day, creating the product is important. And by the way, creating the product is incredibly important. And you have to do it right, and you have to apply the right quality and bring the right value. And I say all the time, nothing sells products as well as products, meaning you can have the best marketing campaign, you can do everything, but if your product does not live up to the promise, the consumer is not going to come back. You may get to sell them once, you'll never get to sell them twice.
Wow. So once people like you, respect respect you and trust you, that's when their minds are made up and they want to invest in you because you are the brand?
That's very often how that goes. And then what I was about to say earlier is we then apply a formula that assists in this kind of selling in of the product as well once you have the right product. So we use what we call the FAME formula. So we focus on fashion, art, music, and entertainment. FAME, fashion, art, music, and entertainment. So, and in essence, that's pop culture, right? So I would say we are probably experts in pop culture.
Wow. Now, Bernt, you basically educate a lot of entrepreneurs all over the world about star branding. Now, when you were working for Daymond John and you was responsible for his brand, what was the value of his inventory at that time?
The value of his inventory, that's an interesting question. I don't know necessarily how to exactly value his inventory. What I will say is this. Daymond is someone that really is due a lot of respect. He had this tremendous idea along with his partners, and he started building this company. And at one point, he got it to a place where he said, gee, I'm not sure if I am the right person on my own to get this brand to the next level. I'm not sure if we, the partners, the original partners, can make this brand fulfill what seems to be its enormous promise. So they went to market with a very powerful idea. So Fubu was for us, by us, and it's really energized a whole socioeconomic demographic, a whole time. It was a lifestyle, it was a music, it was a genre, and it was new, and it was fresh, and it was youth, and technically it was no different than what we have seen before. Youth always have music that differs from what the parents were listening to. It doesn't matter whether it was rock and roll or, but at that particular juncture, it was very, very powerful. So what I can say to answer your question is, Daymond sought out investors to come in with him and help him grow the business. So we ultimately looked almost like the United Nations. Daymond took out an ad, and this is back in the day, this is early in 90s. This is before really the onslaught of internet, and certainly long before any social media. He took out an ad in the classified section in the New York Times saying, have orders, need financing. And as simple as that. And a struggling outerwear company saw the ad and responded, and they met and they spoke, and they weren't sure if they spoke the same language, even though they both speak English perfectly well. But that's how different kind of the approach was, how new and how fresh it was. Ultimately, this family opted to come in, and there were two brothers and a father. One of the brothers was the divisional president at Samsung. So what ultimately happened was that Daymond and the original partners, they handle all the creative, the marketing, the brand building, the design, and then they got this infrastructure. They got access to financing and funding and operations from this family that came in, and Samsung, which managed all the back office. It was very, very interesting and very powerful. And at the time when I left, when I received that phone call from my former CEO, from Donna Karan, when I left, Fubu had retail sales between $700 and $800 million a year.
Wow.
So just get back to, what was the value of the inventory. It became a very, very large business. And I want to tell you, I think also it's so interesting how the brand launched. So when they started out, they had in essence no money. So, and they started out from a place called Hollis, Queens, New York, and they were trying to get their name known. So what they ended up doing was they had noticed that this was kind of a neighborhood with all the storefronts. They had these metal gates that they pulled down at the end of the day. So as soon as it was 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, those metal gates came down, and all the storefronts were all locked up. They were behind these gates. And, you have that gate sitting there during rain, shine, snow. They get dirty. They don't look that great. So the founders, Daymond and his partners, came up with this brilliant concept, and they offered to clean and paint everyone's metal gates against the right to put their logo on it. So at the end of the day, when business was over, whatever these stores were selling, when they closed up shop and they pulled the gate down, the Fubu logo was all over the neighborhood. It was brilliant. Cost nothing other than their manpower.
That was smart branding.
Very smart branding. Here's another one. And this is what really put them on the map. As I told you, LL Cool J was an ambassador for the brand. Another very large brand at the time was concerned about losing their cool with the youth. That brand was Gap. So they reached out to LL Cool J and they contracted with him to create a television campaign for them where he would be rapping for the Gap brand to make the brand seem more relevant with the youth. He accepted. When there was time to shoot, he arrived, he was wearing his Fubu cap. Gap at the time did not have caps. So LL said, hey, I always wear caps. You don't mind that I wear the cap in the shoot? No problem at all. It's an FB. They had no idea what an FB was. So he goes on and he makes this rap about Gap and this and that. And then and they're shooting him from the waist up and focusing on his face. And on the hat is this, on his head is this Fubu cap with FB logo on it. So they focus on that, and he goes on and says, in the middle of his Gap rap, for us, by us, on the low, which was a message to all the kids out there. So he dropped the Fubu name in the middle of the Gap rap, the Gap ad. That commercial was a $30 million commercial. It went everywhere.
Wow.
And it honestly launched the Fubu brand. So, and Daymond speaks of that. He has a book out called The Power of Broke. And what he means, I think, the real power is when you don't have a lot of capital, you have to be creative. And these were certainly some very, very creative ways to launch that brand. I can tell you one more real quick. I'm a little long here on stories, but they're all kind of fun and they all happened. So here's another one, and that is once they decided to go to market, they went to a trade show. There's a big, big apparel trade show. It's there to this day in Las Vegas, and it's called Magic. And all the big retailers go out there and they walk the show to see what's new, what are the latest brands, who should they buy, and so on and so forth.
And this was in the 90s.
This is in the 90s.
The golden era.
Absolutely. Couldn't be any more golden, I'm telling you. And they were all going to Las Vegas, and they were all going to see what's going on. And as you remember, I had mentioned there were two brothers and a father that had come on board with the Fubu brand. And they had an outerwear company, so they had a bunch, I would say a bunch, they had 6 probably middle-aged, Caucasian salespeople that had never seen or heard of a Fubu before in their life. So they were advised that, okay, we now have a new brand. It's called Fubu. And here's what transpired. So the first day of the show is a Monday, and one of the brothers calls up every salesperson, and he has the same conversation with everyone, and he says, on the first day on Monday, I want you to invite every single one of your customers for 9 o'clock. And the salesperson would say, but Bruce, which was his name, I can't see all of them at one time. And by the way, our booth is small. We only have 2 tables. And he was told, do I pay you to think? He said, just do as I say. So every single one, 6 salespeople, called every single one of their buyers of their stores and invited them to the show at 9 o'clock on the first day of the show.
Wow.
When the doors opened and all the other retailers walked in, there was one booth and one booth only, which was completely mobbed. It was surrounded by buyers and retail stores, all trying to figure out what was going on. Now, fear is a very strong motivator. The stores that had not been called, they were all wondering what was going on, and they all came over to figure it out. And that, too, was part of the launch story of Fubu.
Wow. Now, earlier you talked about a lot of brands have phenomenal stories behind them. So facts tell, but stories always sell?
That's a good one. And I think you need a little bit of both. You know, that goes back to the emotion again. The reality is, if you stick to, for instance, the fashion industry where, you know, the vast majority of my time has been spent, you know, there's no one that's buying clothing because they need to stay warm or get protected from the element, unless you're buying something very specialized, some type of a technical product, because, you know, you're going skiing or walking in the mountains. But even then, you have a choice. Like, so most product purchases are not driven by a specific need. It's driven by a desire, which is why, again, we're coming back to the emotion. So it's about how a brand makes you feel, and how the brand makes you feel. Well, the story, there's a lot the story is kind of one of the most powerful elements in how the brand makes you feel. And they're all different, right? So it can be anything. There's a footwear company out there called Tom's. Well, their story was that they're a charitable company. They like giving back. So for every pair of shoes you buy, and I don't know if they still do this, but at one point they would donate a pair of shoes to someone in need. Well, that's incredible. And all you have to do is go and buy yourself a new pair of shoes, and you're actually doing something good, because the company you're buying from, they're giving back to people in need. So that might speak to, you know, one audience. Now you have something completely different. Take Tiffany. It's a high-end jewelry company. Their packaging is this bright blue box. There is a big story there, and that blue box, it makes in particular a lot of ladies feel really good. So the story is important, but at the end of the day, you said the facts. Well, the facts matter too, because, and this goes back to what we said earlier, you only get one shot at making a first impression. So if you say one thing but you do another, well, then you're in trouble with the customer. And they vote with their wallets. And you know, you can't have them go against you. It's next to impossible to come back from that.
You said customers vote with their wallets. So happy customers are loyal customers. They keep coming back to you wanting your product or your service?
That's exactly how it is, of course. So you do want that. And now there's a little more to it. So, yes, happy customer for sure. A lot of the brands are now even engaging with a customer on a complete different level, pulling them into the brand experience, using social media. All kinds of things are happening now. Brands are putting things out. They have a shirt with dots or a shirt with stripes. They put it out on their website and say to the customer, votes, you know, do you like the one with the stripes? Do you like the one with the dots? We will produce the one that gets the most votes. So they pull the customer in to the brand experience. And that's another way of engaging. And it's kind of interesting because it's leading us, I feel, to maybe the holy grail of the new economy. And that is the monetization of social media. So there are now a whole new generation of influencers, bloggers, etc., that have followers online in the millions.
Mm-hmm.
So the traditional celebrity, when we founded Star Branding in 2009, there was not really any type of conversation of social media.